Hi, this is Josh from molosoft, and in this video we're going to see how to open Mole 2010. Mole 2010 is a debugger visualizer that works in Visual Studio 2010, and so you can open it just like you would open any other visualizer that's included with Visual Studio or that you might make by yourself. So on the molosoft website, if you go to molosoft.com/readme, you can download an application that we're going to be using here that walks you through the process step by step of how to open Mole. And there's various ways that you can do it. So we're just going to cover this in this video and use the exact same application that you can download. Okay, so we're in the code behind of a window. It happens to be a WPF application, but it could be any other type of .NET application. And you see that we have a breakpoint set in the handle click event handling method. So what I'm going to do is fire up the application. Now we're seeing the WPF application that shows how to open Mole. So let's just go through this step by step. First, make sure that Mole 2010 has been installed on your computer. Then run this program in Visual Studio with the debugger attached, meaning by pressing F5. Make sure that you have your breakpoint set in the code behind like we saw before, which we do already have set up, so it's not a problem. And then in step 5, we're going to click on this button to actually hit the breakpoint in the code behind. After we do that, you can see that we're going to position our mouse cursor over the sender variable to get a data tip. And then we're going to drop down the little listing of visualizers available for the sender object, and we're going to click Mole 2010. And that will launch Mole. And after we see how to do that, we'll take a look here at step 9 and see how we can also use various debugging windows in Visual Studio to open Mole 2010. Okay, so let's go back to step 5 here in our application and click the button that's going to hit the breakpoint. Okay, as you can see, we have now entered the breakpoint, and I'm mousing over the sender variable to get a data tip. I'm going to click on the drop down button and click the Mole 2010 menu item. And there you go. Mole is now open, and as you can see, the sender, which was a button in this case, is the initially selected element here in our element tree, and all of the properties of that sender are listed here in the moloscope, as well as a snapshot image of the button that was under the mouse cursor. Now, keep in mind that you can open Mole for thousands of different types of .NET objects, not just WPF controls. So, in some cases, you might not have any need for the element tree or the snapshot, such as if you're dealing with just a data object or something that doesn't have a visual representation or is not part of a visual hierarchy, such as you see in the element tree. So I'm going to close down Mole, and we're back at this breakpoint, and you can see here that we have the locals window, and we have 3 objects in this local window that are capable of being opened by Mole. So let's open Mole now for the main window, which is the main window of the WPF application that we happen to be debugging. As you can see, after I clicked on the drop down button, we're listed with 2 options: the standard WPF tree visualizer that Microsoft produced, and then Mole 2010. I'm going to click Mole 2010, and as you would expect, Mole opens back up in the exact same position with the same size that it was at before. The only difference being now that the selected element is initially the main window as opposed to the button that we saw in the previous example. So as you can see, Mole will initially select and display all of the properties and fields on the element for which Mole is opened. So if you open Mole for a button, you're going to initially select that button. If you open it for, let's say, a data set, you're initially going to see the data set, etc. You can also open Mole with the watch window, But let's say that you had an object that you could not open with mole that you could not open with the standard Visual Studio Visualizer API because it doesn't happen to derive from one of the thousands of types in the .NET framework that mole is allowed to be opened for. Well, what you could do in that case is in the watch window you could create a new system.weak reference, as you can see here, new system.weak reference, pass in the object that you want to open in mole. Let's just say for this example it is this, which this would be referring to the window, which is capable of being opened by mole. But just to illustrate the point of this, I'll do that. I hit enter, and as you can see, I can open mole for a weak reference. And what that does is when I click on this menu item, it's going to open mole for the target of the weak reference, not the weak reference itself. And this is sort of a backdoor that you can use to get any object to be opened inside of mole. This works around a limitation that Visual Studio provides with regards to the visualizers and what you can open them for. And that's all for this video. I hope you enjoy using mole. Thanks a lot.